This film is going to take a look at the relationship between technology and gender. First, we have to consider what is gender, and it's important to remember that gender actually has a history, and it really developed very differently in different places. While today non-binary status is something new for us, many other cultures had people that were two-spirit, neither male nor female, or what we today might call non-binary. But of course, you can't simply take something new and put it into another context and expect it to be exactly the same. Gender is really about a system of beliefs and stereotypes we hold about people who present in particular ways. While some people see biological sex as having clear demarcations, when we try to interpret bodies, it actually gets a lot more complicated. Are we looking at external genitalia? Are we considering chromosomes? Are we considering people who maybe don't quite neatly fall into any category? In Western culture, beliefs about gender have resulted in women being excluded from jobs related to technology. These are some of the highest paying and most desirable jobs in our culture right now, so that's a real problem. Too often, gender is excluded from discussions of technology. This happens for a number of reasons. First, people tend to presume that technologies are neutral objects, that they're designed without a specific gender in mind, but that doesn't necessarily take into account who's involved in the production process. Second, technologies are perceived as impacting everybody equally without taking into account that people have different bodies and different lived experiences. And finally, debates about gender issues are often coming into play only after the technology has been completed, rather than being part of the development of the technology itself. The women's liberation view of technology holds out the optimistic view that technology will result in women having more equal roles and more opportunities. It highlights the fact that technology has changed our fertility options and may have resulted in some reductions in household labor. The problem is this view is reflecting fairly traditional gender assumptions, and as a result, it's not really taking into account women's actual lived experience. It's also not considering the way women are locked out of the design of technology because of gender inequality. By contrast, women's oppression view argues that advances in technology are actually further limiting women, and that as we become more reliant on technology, we see less of an opportunity for liberation. Again, both these views are holding on to fairly traditional views of women, and they aren't really looking at the ways that our views about gender have been changing over time. Reproductive technologies do provide an interesting example of dealing with gender and technology. For starters, reproductive technologies can offer a wider range of options to people with reproductive challenges. The other problem is, though, that not everything can be solved by technology. Some people are going to have a challenge no matter what, and it may not be resolvable. We also have to consider access to technologies in an international context. What we might consider something everyone has might be a life-saving technology in another place. But most importantly, we need to consider how we aren't fully considering differences by gender, race, class, location when we talk about these issues. We need everybody involved when we're developing technology so that we get technology that works for everybody. When we think about households or domestic technology in general, we have to think about the sociology of housework. This idea comes from a book by Anne Oakley. She points out that household work is actually a form of labor, a form of unpaid labor that is actually essential to the functioning of households and our economy. And she highlights that just like any form of labor, it can be alienating in a Marxist sense. Washman describes three characteristics of housework. First, housework is privatized. It's not visible, compensated, acknowledged, or celebrated within communities like other forms of work, even though it's essential. Second, it's decentralized. Unlike paid forms of labor, housework is dependent largely on the homemaker. There's no formal roles, tasks, or deadlines. Therefore, it's difficult to determine when your work is complete. And finally, housework is labor intensive. it never ends. You could always be working hard at housework and it will never be done. So it's not like other jobs where there might be an ebb and flow of your labor, where sometimes when you need to be working harder, other times when you can maybe relax a little bit. Over time, we've really seen expectations of housework change, and that's part of it. With the domestic science movement and germ theory, we see a belief that things need to be orderly and clean for our own health and well-being. In addition, applying the principles of scientific management to housework and the introduction of new technologies was thought to perhaps save time, but in reality, it seems like it's just added an additional set of tasks and expectations. So we do see some gender differences in how people behave in public technological spaces. For example, people who identify as male are more likely to edit and post content. That doesn't mean that people who identify as female don't do this. It just means that people who are male are more likely to do this. We also see differences in how people use online communities. People who identify as female are more likely to use it as what we call a counter-public space, or a space where a marginalized perspective can be voiced or issues can be raised. We also sometimes see people who identify as female more likely to invoke care structures. Some people highlight the ways that social media may operate as a third space, especially for people who identify as female. What's a third space? Third spaces are not home, not work, places where we build relationships and community, share and develop ideas, and express ourselves. The problem is social media is fundamentally a corporate-controlled, profit-motivated space, and that limits any potential it has for being a genuine third space. Despite ongoing efforts to reduce gender segregation in technology-related fields, we actually do still see high rates of segregation in many of the fields, and in some cases, some areas have undergone a process of what's referred to as gender resegregation, where certain aspects of a job or certain areas are classified as somehow feminine or more feminized, and women are more likely to hold those jobs. We're seeing an increasing number of cybertariats, or basically women working in data entry or in record-keeping fields. So how do we explain ongoing gender segregation? First and foremost, we need to consider that we still have gender socialization and stereotypes. Despite real attempts to make changes to these things, we still hear people repeating harmful stereotypes about women's abilities to function in fields that require a lot of mathematics or technical expertise. We also still have gendered roles in school departments. We still don't have enough women in leadership. In addition, if you've been socialized in a particular way, you may still be reproducing particular norms or values that don't mesh with the way a lot of women work or operate. Finally, we see toxic workplace environments. This is actually one of the areas I study. And the way we used to put it is, it's not a pipeline problem. The pipeline is clogged and it also leaks. And what we mean by that is, you can get women to go into STEM, but if they're having a miserable experience when they're there, they're going to leave. In general, we need to bring bodies back into discussions of technology, not just for gender equity, but for all of us in general. First of all, bodies and technologies interact. How we interact with technology can change the relationship we have with our bodies and its limits and possibilities. Not all bodies are the same. We can do different things with our bodies, and we need different help for our bodies. Technology does not determine the body, but it can absolutely change our limits and possibilities. But we have to keep in mind that real bodies do absolutely have limits. We can't expect bodies to be able to do everything. Thanks for watching.